Back on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell and your afternoon drive. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm, but it's okay because we got Donny Marshall. It's his tournament, so they can't start inside until Donny comes back inside. So Donny Marshall, wonderful guy, calls obviously the college basketball, former NBA player, UConn great, and the Donny Marshall Charity Golf Tournament, which takes care of the Tolland Fund and also helps out the Ryan Martin Adaptive Sports Foundation. Your thoughts? How was the day before we got this downpour?
Well, this was, I know my committee that puts this together, this is their
nightmare. Yeah.
It's their nightmare,
yeah.
But this is all they think about is outside after we're going to have people standing around cocktail party. But for me, to be able to get the golf in, and
right.
You've been in those events where it rains and you're like, hey, what do we do? Do we stay? You feel bad? So the timing for me and my guys is perfect. We got the golf in, and now we still can go inside and eat. But, hey, this is the day before the rain was perfect, especially here in Connecticut. You know what we've been dealing with, the humidity and the heat. So we really lucked out today.
Tell us about the tribal clinic that you do before this tournament on Sunday. This has been going on for a little bit, but I thought it was more highlighted this year than ever. What goes on in that clinic? Who is this for? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, it started initially years ago for just the tribal members' children and relatives. And then over the past couple of years, Rodney Butler, the chairman of Pequot Nation, he's a former UConn guy, played football at UConn. He played with us 9 holes today, but he's a very, very good friend. And he said, why not expand this, make it a little bit more inclusive to kids who may be a teammate of a tribal member, so on and so forth. And I was all for it. And it started as, 25 kids, 30 kids. Then it turned into 50, then 75, and we had a good 80 kids yesterday. And it's free for the kids. Guys nowadays, and Dibs especially, everything's pay for play.
Yep.
If you want to play, you have to pay.
Yep.
So the fact that we can have, 70, 80 kids getting, even though it's only a couple hours, getting exposure to other kids who they might not normally get exposure to in the game of basketball. I always try to invite current players from UConn. Asandiaro was great. I know they were on, and Caroline Ducharme last year. Cam Spencer and Donovan Klingen were there. So for me, it's kind of twofold. It's as we say, a corny cliche, giving back.
Right.
But it's also kind of connecting, the current players with myself and older players and saying, hey, this is what you do when you're done playing. Yep. This is what you need to do. I'm passing the baton to you. So hopefully they'll pick that up and do that at some point. But it really is awesome because you have coaches in there who aren't being paid. They're in there on their own time. And we know people would rather do other things on a Sunday morning, but the fact that we have a great turnout and Chairman Butler is so behind it, it makes it easier, and it really does. It's selfish for me. It makes me feel – last night I slept so great, not because we had a great VIP party at High Rollers, and we did have a good time with all our sponsors, but because of what we did for those kids during the day, and even 2 hours, but it means so much.
Well, and you're paying it forward. I love what you're talking about because even as a player, when you came in, I'm sure veteran players took care of you. When you're young, humility is not like one of the things in your agenda. You're just trying to make a name for yourself. So to go to an adaptive thing or to go to something else where people don't have as much, like Donnie's talking about. Listen, Perfect Game is owned by my old baseball agent. Yeah. I said I'll only come on board if you let kids do this for free. I'm not going to keep charging kids $2,000 per tournament, all this other kind of stuff. And so, for me, I want these kids that don't have what we had to get an opportunity to see what we saw, maybe have an opportunity to get there. I keep using this, even with UConn baseball. They had 7 D3 players play on their team this year. And I want to drive that message home to my 15, 16U players who think I can never play D1 ball. Yeah. I'll never get an opportunity to play D1 ball. So, Donnie, myself, we're trying to pay this to the next generation because we're not going to be here forever. Yeah. It's going to be up to you to carry this on and teach these kids, and give these kids an opportunity that we had.
And it works two ways. For me,
oh my God, it's so rewarding.
You can, as a kid, I didn't have those resources. My brother's here from Seattle. He comes in every year for this. He is one of the greatest human beings I've ever had in my life. He taught me everything I know, and then my mom. So I had a great support unit. But I didn't have those opportunities. I didn't have anyone saying, come play for free. We have this for you set up and your teammates. So I could have done one of two things, said, you know what, I didn't have it, so who cares? I don't.
Right.
I didn't get it, I'm fine. Or go the other way and say, you know what, I don't want any kids to have to fight today to try to find their place. And that's why we do it as well.
Some of my lifelong friends growing up in Indiana, man, if you don't play basketball, I don't know who you are. And it's just the community of basketball has given me so many different relationships. Coming here to Connecticut, I did not know about adaptive sports. I did not know about wheelchair basketball like I do today with the Ryan Martin Foundation. And finding out, talking to these kids, I'd rather hang out with these kids than anyone else here at this tournament. Just the salt-of-the-earth human beings that have developed a community and have tight-knit friendships that are so important for everyone to have the ability to get out there on the court.
Yeah, that's the awesome thing about it is you know, it's not just able-bodied people playing these sports. You know, we have to understand that everyone has the opportunity, especially now with technology, not just the money that we raise for wheelchairs and amputees and trying to find new ways to be able to compete in the sports that they love. It's such a great opportunity. And through this, again, when you have them out here either helping or playing, it kind of shows people who support us what they're supporting. How many events have we played in? And you're like, wait, what is this support? And we can't see it. It's not tangible. But to have all of those athletes out here and everyone that's involved with the Ryan Martin's Foundation and Ryan Martin himself, it's huge because people are like, this is what we want to be a part of. And again, it's a basketball state. They know me and Scott Burrell and Ray Allen and Kevin Ollie as basketball players, but there's so much more when you have an event like this and you can see those other athletes out here. It's amazing.
And you guys, you're now with the Talent Fund, but also with Ryan Martin's Foundation, you've opened up so many adaptive areas. We helped with the Miracle League get that stadium open, and obviously with the adaptive players, but they want able-bodied players to come play with them. We just had Hassan Diarra on, and he was joking about it. He's like, the wheelchair guys were going, yeah, you can't play at our level. So, and he was kind of shocked by that. But to me, honestly, I mean, Ben knows this from Amy Van Dyke, and six-time gold medalist. She's now in a wheelchair, but she sees things from a different perspective now. The wheelchairs are $30,000. You know, getting just access to places, even to be able to get to a gym to work out or to even play a sport or something like that. It's not accessible to everybody. So that's the thing that I think that this opens a lot of people's eyes on giving everybody access to the same things like you and I said when we were growing up.
And I like putting pressure on people, whether it's on the golf course.
I like I call it guilt. I like guilting people.
That's a nice way to put it. We had an athlete here last year who earned a full scholarship to play wheelchair basketball at the University of Illinois. I'm trying to convince the University of Connecticut to try to raise some funds to find scholarships and to
100%.
build a
And
wheelchair basketball team at UConn. I think that only makes sense. So I'm putting the pressure on our administrators at UConn.
There you
Donny
go.
Marshall, FS1, covers the Big East. Let's talk a little hoops, sir. I remember 7 years ago we were talking to you about UConn basketball, and there was this big breath, and then you started talking about it. It's a lot easier nowadays to have that conversation. Man, what has the last 5 years with this program meant for alums?
Well, we remember 7 years ago it was a different conference.
AAC.
Conferences mean everything. You know, when you're talking about getting the right athletes in, recruiting, television rights, and it really – and look, you have to understand that there are smaller conferences that are going to have success, but everyone knew UConn as a Big East school. And it's a different animal when you're playing in a smaller conference, mid-major, if you will. All due respect to mid-majors, UConn didn't belong there. I give the administration of UConn just so much credit in fighting to get UConn back into the Big East. And look what happens. Now, in all fairness, Kevin Ollie won a national title in the AAC. But then after that, there was a little dip because now you're competing with Duke and Syracuse. You're in the ACC or Big 12 teams, and you're like, okay, who do we play on a Friday? Tulsa. No disrespect to Tulsa, but Tulsa is not North Carolina. Tulsa is not St. John's or Georgetown. So getting back into the Big East meant everything, and I think it was both ways. It worked for the Big East. It also worked, obviously, for UConn. But the fact that UConn and Villanova have won so many national titles in the last 7-8 years, it tells you what kind of conference the Big East is. And, look, last year people said, can they repeat? I said, absolutely. You better place your bets. This is like October. People thought I was crazy. And just look what Danny Hurley has done and his staff. Tom Moore was here today. Those guys understand when you're recruiting a kid, it's not just about basketball. And again, Hassan and Caroline here today, it's character. It's not, you want great basketball players, but you need good character kids. And that's what Hurley has continued to build on from Calhoun and Kevin. And is just so proud to talk about the UConn Huskies,
Talking to Donny Marshall here at the Donny Marshall charity golf outing. Talk about Dan Hurley coming back and not going to L.A. and that whole thing was just crazy. Didn't go to Kentucky, that kind of stuff. How difficult was it for probably a decision for him? And also has been able to keep the coaching staff intact. Talk about some of these things because they're almost impossible after winning back-to-back championships.
Well, I have to give Coach Hurley credit for getting more money for his assistants because we know in sports these coaches make a ton of money and their assistants are struggling to buy a new suit at times. They really are. So they're like, hey, let's just wear the zip-ups and sweatsuits because we don't have suits like the head coach. So I give him so much credit. Obviously, we know he's a phenomenal coach. We don't have to talk about the basketball. But what he's done, Hurley, as a relationship guy, to me it's been all the difference because you have your coaches now who are getting paid more and getting paid well, which they deserve, but it makes them now want to work even harder. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that he understands it's not just about me, Coach Hurley, it's about my staff and building. And I can't imagine what those conversations were like, though, with his wife. I think his wife, more than anything, for telling him, we're not going to L.A., we're not going to Kentucky.
That's right.
I like it here. We're from Jersey. It's not that far. We can get in a car and drive.
And listen, I lived in L.A. for 10 years. These are our people.
Yes.
I mean, when you get here, you're kind of like,
I love going to L.A. to do the studio at Fox.
That's right. But when you get back here, you're probably like, these are my people.
Absolutely. So, Andrea, thank you wherever you are.
Thank God.
I give her all the credit. Just like you give Pat Calhoun the credit when Coach Calhoun had opportunities to go to the NBA.
100%.
But nowadays it's big money. And Coach Hurley said, you know what? How much money do I really need? I want to win and win and win, getting paid well. But when you're talking for them, the money, the difference, I love that UConn stepped up, brought that salary up, and I love the fact that he stayed. Because
in the state of Connecticut.
In the state of Connecticut.
By the
we
way,
all know.
He's the highest paid
state employee
in New England.
In New England. He's worth it, man.
Yeah,
I know I'm biased because I'm an alum. Coach Hurley's worth every penny.
Yep.
Like Coach Calhoun said, not
a dime back.
That's
my greatest. That's the greatest.
Teaches about the Big East. It's so crazy. Basketball's tough, man. I mean, even following UConn, you kind of got to follow the transfer portal. You got to follow the recruiting trail. Just for all these teams, I know just looking at it from a broad scope here, 24-25, who should we be worried about as UConn fans in the Big East next year?
I'm not sure there's a team that we should not be worried about because now that bullseye is so much bigger. Every time you play Marquette, every time you play Georgetown, and I don't care what the records were before, every time you go and play Sean Miller's Xavier team, whoever it is, Stade Monta, you understand they are trying to play the game of their life. It may be just the 7th game of the season for UConn, but it's the game of the season and the year for all those other teams. So you have to go in with a different mindset as a 2-time champ. You just do. Because now you give those teams confidence, and then they say, okay, well, what's the recipe? We saw Xavier beat UConn. Georgetown, they have the recipe now. So I don't know if you can go into a season, and we know as players sometimes we know we got them. You look at the calendar, and you're like, oh, we're going to beat them, we're going to beat them. But coaches, I guarantee you, are not saying, oh, we're going to go 6-0, 8-0, 10-0, or we can beat Butler. You go to Indy, Butler's a tough team there.
Yeah.
What I love now about the Big East is the personalities of the coaches. It's back to when I played.
Oh, yeah.
You have
larger than life,
and they demand so much more because they have that panache, because they have kind of the validation already of being winners across the board. So, we got some good young guys in Shaka Smart, Kim English. Yeah. Now they're pulling it up because they've learned from some great coaches. So I'm not sure there's a team that we can look past. And the Big East, this is, if there was ever a time to be a Big East fan, right now is the time.
I know you got to get inside. I want to throw one Olympic question at you,
Love it.
because LeBron may not play again, KD, some of these other guys, but the run that, obviously the U.S. men, but obviously, Serbia, France, some of these countries are getting better at playing us. So is that good for the NBA game?
I think it is. I think it's good for, David Stern, before he passed, he was trying to globalize the game in terms of the NBA. And if you think about this, when the Dream Team played in the Olympics, they played against 9 other NBA players. This year, not including our team,
a good point
they played
right
against
there.
61
There you go.
other
There you
NBA
go.
players.
Yeah.
61. The Dream Team played against 9. Now, I'm not saying you
Right.
compare and who's
Right.
But
but that just shows
that in a
how
nutshell
it's grown.
tells you what basketball is all about around the world. And not only that, there was a time 20 years ago where Europe wanted to play like Americans in the NBA, and now you see the NBA game turning into more of a European-style game when you see 7'3" guys handling the ball. You see 7-footers shooting threes.
Yep.
It's nothing but good for basketball, not just at the NBA A level, but also at the college level. So right now, man, look, I know people only watch basketball at the pro level in the playoffs. Most of the friends that I talk to, even my former NBA buddies, I don't watch till the playoffs. But I'm telling you what, watching those Olympics, if you weren't proud of our team for the way they played, and then watching those other NBA players they played against, they respect the U.S., and some people may say the gap is closing. I don't know about that. I just know that basketball around the world, including the NBA, is just at an all-time high and only getting better, guys.
What's the shot of the day? What was the big shot for Donny Marshall's team? Put you over the edge, maybe win a personal bet or two.
So there was a par 5. So the first year I got criticized because Sterling Sharp was in my group and we won it.
Well, Sterling's one of the best golfers
cool.
I've ever
That's
seen.
not cool, Donny.
But it was the inaugural, so I had to win the first one. So
Okay,
now
all
we
right,
just
all
play
Don't tell
golf.
me Ray was in your group.
So Ray today.
God, come on.
Oh, man.
And Kevin
Ray
Ollie.
Allen.
And
Oh,
Kevin
come
Ollie.
on. They're both good.
So we played a match. So
Okay.
Ray was on in 2 at about 20 feet on a par 5, and I was on in 2 at about 4 feet. And made eagle.
Ooh, I
So
like that.
That was
Wow.
my
I like
shot of
that.
the day, and
there you go.
always good having my guys out here. Chris Smith, we can go
Yep.
down the line.
Yep.
Scotty Burrell, I tell Sterling Sharp, I told Ray and Kevin the same thing. Like, you guys don't understand how important this is, not only for me,
Right.
but for all the people to see you here.
Yep.
It might be just another
Even
day
me,
of golf for
man.
them.
I love
Even
you
Diggs,
guys,
but-
dude.
But even
you
Diggs.
can't even say you can't.
So many.
Yeah.
Look, I know you're with him every day.
I know.
But so many people like Rob Dibble's here. I'm like, can you believe it?
Yeah.
I think he's. I think
I'm not
he's on
talking
the
about me.
clock.
I'm saying I love Scotty.
I
and
think
you,
he's
the
on the
other guys.
clock, though. That's why he's
Oh,
here.
yeah. Oh,
my
yeah.
other guys are
Oh,
here
yeah.
for charity. Dibbs is getting paid.
Okay. Go inside.
Thanks,
Do
guys.
your
Oh,
thing.
on that
man.
note.
I
No,
love
no,
being
no.
with you guys.
Go host your event.
much is he getting
I
paid
love you.
anyway?
Donny Marshall, man. I love you, man. That's great. We'll be
you
right
guys.
back on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell on Fox.